So I don't think we can talk about the future of science and technology without bringing in some of the scientists who are going to be leading us into that future. Our next session will be a panel discussion with 4 of our very talented early career scientists from the STO Collaborative Network. This discussion will be facilitated by the Honorable Alan Shaffer, a former director of the Collaboration Support Office from 2015 to 2018. After his tenure at the Collaboration Support Office, he served as the United States Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment. In this capacity, he was responsible to the Secretary of Defense for all matters pertaining to acquisition, contract administration, logistics and material readiness, installations and environment, operational energy, chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons, the acquisition workforce, and the defense industrial base. While holding this role, he simultaneously served as the Acting Assistant Secretary of Defense for nuclear, chemical, and biological defense programs. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Alan Shaffer.
Panelists, come on up. So this will be split. I want to just have a couple of moments for a couple of comments, and then we'll let each of our young scientists talk about their work for a very short amount of time, then we'll come back for questions. I want to make a couple of observations. One, you see the theme here. The future is not about us old people who get up here and talk. It's about how do the young people translate what we have given them and put it into action. And I don't want it to be like we all got it coming up, where the old people gave us something and said, here you go, folks, it's your problem. They've got to be part of the solution, and they've got to be, and we've got to figure out how to work better with them. So I'll just make that statement up front. I feel so passionately about the future being people. When I was running the U.S. Department of Defense Research and Engineering program, I started the Young Scientist of the Quarter Award. That has been ongoing since 2014. We've had some 30, 35 of them, remarkable things. I came to NATO. I looked at the people in the network, great work, but man, we were old. And I challenged the STB to start sending in more young people. They agreed. We established some awards for young scientists or early career scientists. We've been giving those awards out since about 2018, 2019, and we have 4 of our best young scientists across NATO. But this is the future. So I will, with that, introduce each of them for just a moment, and I should have said at the top, John McCall, thank you for asking me to do this. You know how passionate I am about the future, but also thank you to Brian and all the rest of the distinguished guests. So I'll do a very short introduction, and I hope I will at least pronounce the name semi-correctly. Eleri Lillemäe from Estonia. She is a researcher at the Estonian Military Academy and a PhD candidate from the University of Tartu. Her research focus, and this is very interesting because I heard Mr. Redding's view of the future. It was great, but it was still physics-based and still based in the physical world. We've got to think more about the gray zone and misinformation. Her focus is on human-machine interface, but also human resources, human cognition, how to do surveys to adapt to the future. She has a BA and MS in sociology from the University of Tartu, and you're going to have to help me, a university in the Netherlands? Okay, very good. In Amsterdam. We have Sven Binsbergen, who's actually a physicist. I was a physicist, mathematician. I like this, high energy lasers, those types of things. I understand them better, but I recognize that we are moving out of the physics-based and into the information and thought-based world, but it's still important. He's active with the NATO SCT, Science and Electronics Technology, and SCI teams. He loves field trials. Very important, because I also have not heard much of this morning. I've heard some of it, but the best technology devised in a laboratory that doesn't go to the field is very much like the old philosophy. If a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, does it matter? If a technology is developed in a laboratory but is not used, does it matter? We have to have the field trials and let the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and marine get out and play with the things that are developed to bring them along. So you are very much involved in that and modeling of lasers through the atmosphere. Congratulations. The third, and this is also looking a little bit to the future, some of what Dale talked about, Dr. João Caetano, from the head of the UAS operations of the Portuguese Air Force. He does applied research into developing and applications of new UAS systems. He's been involved with the NATO STO network since 2010. He was recognized as the Applied Vehicle and Technology Young Career Scientist of the Year in 2019, and an MS and PhD from Delft University in the Netherlands. And finally, Dr. Dominika Kosárová, did I get it right? Oh, that's wonderful. And Dr. Zuna came up to me and told me I had to make sure I get this right. At the University of the Defense Center for Security and Military Studies in the Czech Republic, but university is the important part. He was adamant about that. Pavel, I listened. She has her degrees from the university, actually from Slovenia, isn't it? Your PhD? Slovakia. From the University of, help me out with the pronunciation, Dominika.
You can try, it's good.
Well, I can try, but I can't read my writing. As you get older, you can't see it. Mataj Bell? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. But also studies, fascinating. I looked at her LinkedIn page. She studied in the UK. She has studied at the University of Reims de Champagne. She has studied in Switzerland, I think, Austria. You have an enormous amount of academic background and have been a research professor in France and now Czech Republic. Her specialty is in fact, she's co-chairing the SAS Panel 154 Research and Technology Group, focusing on developing an analytic framework for the future of strategies. But part of her background is interesting. She actually develops lectures and materials to help general officers and senior officers think about how they progress through their career. A lot of work in hybrid warfare and the application of hybrid warfare. And as we're seeing in the Ukraine, although it isn't quite as much hybrid as we would like, there is still an enormous amount of misinformation. And that's the part of the future that we still don't understand. So hybrid warfare and misinformation is critical. So with that, I will stop talking and turn it over to each of you to give me about 2 minutes about what you do and why it is important for the militaries. Well, actually, since we're quitting at 12:15, you can have 3 minutes. So we'll go, Eleri, we'll go first with you because I introduced you first.
Does that? Oh yeah, that works. Okay, hi. So I'm Eleri. I come from Estonia, Estonian Military Academy. And thank you for the great introduction. Well, yes, my research mainly focuses on the, most broadly said, on human factors or human factors, but I could break it up to 3 parts, basically. First of them would be very closely related to technology, which is basically you can have top-notch technology, but you always have a human standing behind it. And with advancing technology, we also have to think about the persons behind it, that we have to start thinking about maybe changing curriculum for developing future leaders, how to develop technology ethically, morally, legally, and how the leaders can make correct decisions, how they can work with the technology, that there is no technology without people. They develop them, they program them, and they work with them. And that is the first part of the human resources research. The second one I would bring up is the public opinion and the public acceptance. And it goes a bit further because we can also talk about technology here. If public accepts a new technologies, then it can have a huge way ahead. But if there is a resistance, if there is not understanding the AI is often anthropomorphized, often feared. There are Terminator scenarios going on. And if people fear, there is a lot of fear among them, then it can become fatal for new technologies. Not only in the military field, but in the civilian as well. You have probably heard about stop killer robots, right? So the public acceptance is also very important for future technologies and developing them. But public acceptance is also important for militaries and legitimizing them. Because if people trust military and armed forces, then they will have their support. And it's very important that the people would have the trust in their armed forces and they would support whatever militaries are doing to counter any attacks. And the third part I consider most passionate I'm probably about is the will to defend of people. And it's also because I'm from the eastern flank. And of course we feel the war in Ukraine, it's very close to us geographically and historically. And the will to defend, not will to fight, which is very important because for NATO, I think will to defend is also a more correct term because we are talking about defending ourselves. The will to defend goes a step further because we don't talk only about military and how ready we are by our competencies, by our technologies, but we also have to talk about the whole nation. Whether the total defense or comprehensive defense is the word, but are we as brave as Ukrainians are? I think is the most common question in Baltic states. Are we as innovative as we are, as already the previous speaker emphasized? Can we resist the same way? And well, to sum up, I think that human factors are like, or technology and human factors are like Lego bricks, that you can bring different technologies together and build Lego bricks to make a defensive structure. But the base on it is the human factors and the people underneath it. Because if you really want to win the war, then just break the will of people and you take the fundament away and you can have the best technology you have. But if there's nobody to use it, then there's no point of it. So I think that sums up.
That does, and thank you. Sven?
Oh, you have your own.
This works. This is a work? Yeah. Thank you as well for the very nice introduction. As you said, my name is Sven from Binsbergen, although I've also been referred to as the laser dude yesterday. I'll come back to that in a moment. But I work at TNO in the Netherlands. In the TNO does most of the research for our Ministry of Defense. And as the nickname suggests, I work a lot with high-energy lasers at this point. At TNO, we have a couple of pillars on high-energy laser systems that we try to do our research on. We have optical or atmospheric laser propagation, countermeasures, safety, and also laser material interaction. And these are four main topics that we try to focus all of our research around. And I try to be involved in all of them, but most of my time is spent on laser propagation and laser safety. And these are two things I think that also work very well towards the question, why is it important the work that you do? Because a laser weapon is just another piece of technology. It's a Lego brick in the entire system. And I think I agree. But the question is, a laser weapon can be a very nice system. It can be a very valuable addition to any weapon suite or group. But it's never something by its own. You need to know how to use it. You need to know when to use it and in what conditions. And that's also the thing that we're trying to do within TNO, but also in collaboration with all the NATO groups, to understand, to improve, and to inform. And to understand, first you need to know what is it we're working with, optical propagation through the atmosphere, what breaks up my laser beam, how can I make sure, or what's making sure that my laser beam still is effective at a certain range, what can an opponent do against it. And if we know these things, we can switch towards the improvement phase where we say, okay, we know these are the limitations, these are the problems. are there technological or other solutions to circumvent these limitations and to actually use it in more stressing conditions or all night, the entire year in good weather, in bad weather. And then in the end, I think the informing, also sharing this information with our military and telling them, hey, this is what you have as weapon systems, this is what you can use it for, but use it in the correct conditions because otherwise it's going to be useless.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sven. So, João?
Thank you very much, Honorable Alan Shaffer. Hello, everyone. João Caetano from Portuguese Air Force Research Center. So I do understand that we are sitting between you and your lunches, so I'll be quick on this one. As introduced, I'm in the military, so everything we do is focused on the military actions and improving the military technology. My area of expertise is in UAS, so unmanned aircraft systems, normally called drones. When I first started research on this 15 years ago, actually, they were the main focus point of the development of air power. Now they are the main horses for the development and usage of all the underlying set of sensor suits. So the areas of expertise that we are working at the Portuguese Air Force involve things like artificial intelligence, sensors, lasers, energy weapons, standoff, counter UAS, so, GPS spoofing, HMI, human-machine interaction. So this way of working has pushed us forward into understanding all of these fields that I've just mentioned. So in a nutshell, we are improving, and we do believe that in this way, we are improving NATO, which is actually a political and alliance with an armed branch, improving its military, and we will always, within NATO and its allies and partners for peace, of course, work towards having a brighter future. We need to step up, though, because we are about 1 billion. Chinese have 40% more population and only one nation. So let's kick the tires and light the fires. Thank you very much.
Dominika? Yeah, we have one more, but that was good. Speaking like an airman, that was good.
Good morning, bonjour. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It's really an honor to be here and share my ideas with you. So when it comes to my research and what I do in my academic career, so I would say that there are three main areas. Some of it was already mentioned. So first of all, for the past more or less 3 years, I have been chairing the RTG group on future strategic environment assessments, which means that our ambition is to develop a handbook that could help practitioners to create their own foresight framework according to their own resources, needs, purpose of the foresight. It should provide recommendations, best practices on how to integrate foresight into strategic planning, how to conduct it, but also will deal with the question how to make it more actionable. So our objective is not to say what the future will be like, there are no crystal balls there, but especially to advise, so maybe some smaller states that do not have the expertise how to best do it. So that's the first area. Next, in addition to this, I'm also a member of a research team on resilience or building resilience of the Czech armed forces against hybrid interference. We try to find out what makes some military personnel less resilient against disinformation or misinformation, for example. And then our objective is to enhance resilience by, for example, reviewing education curricula, provide maybe some kind of training to military staff. And finally, my academic research also has been focused on the issue of counterterrorism, which is a topic that I have impression that maybe we don't talk about it that much today because, of course, there are other issues, but it doesn't mean that it disappeared. On the other hand, I believe that some terrorist groups might exploit the fact that we forgot about them, so I'm sure that this topic definitely will have its relevance in the future. So I was brief as I could.
No, listen, we are exactly 50 seconds early, so I will take the opportunity to say thank you very much. Colonel, we get the 45 extra seconds on the back end. I will ask everybody here to think about the broad areas that these young people are working in, and come back from lunch and ask them questions that will show the depth of what they're thinking, because this is the future. And if we don't have a way to bring and integrate the older people and the younger people, and we just hand a problem off to them, we will fail. It's got to be a jointly developed solution. They're as much a part of the team as we all are. So go enjoy lunch and come back hungry for more answers, and come back hungry to ask questions. I have a series of questions, but it really isn't about what questions I have. This is about what questions do you have as kind of the NATO leadership structure, either about their research, about what they want to achieve, about how they see the future, any of the above. So do I have any questions? Yes.
First of all, thank you very much. You're great speakers, all four of you. The one question I have, what would you do to encourage more early career scientists into our activities?
Sven?
Thanks for the question. I think it's a very good one. I'm just going to look back at the way that I ended up here at NATO, because I think that was a very good method. I have a colleague who has been active at NATO for quite some time. And when I was at TNO for about half a year, he said, hey, there's a trial and we need someone because the typical colleagues are indisposed of. And can you go there? And do you want to join us on this trial and meet new people, have fun doing the trial? And that was actually the first introduction for me to both international institutes, the collaboration we did. And after that, he also just kept allowing me to tag along in his SET group, introducing me as the expert on some topic I knew barely anything about. But that's the way that I rolled into NATO, and also learned about the different groups, got to know the people, and I think that's that way, just taking people along and slowly letting them discover their own interests in these fields and joining them, their own groups. I think that's a very good start, because it might be a bit scary if you don't have anyone, if you don't know anything about the organization. You think, yeah, it's NATO, it's the big group, and why should I be there? But if you have just a small push to start, I think that's a really good introduction, and from there it all goes quite smoothly.
So I think that's a great question, and Sven, thank you for the answer. I'm going to make it a harder question. And the harder question is, this is a very mature organization with a lot of physicists, engineers, and hard scientists. We've heard some people intimate today that the future is kind of a crossover between hard science and disinformation, information. I was fascinated with the Estonia viewpoint of understanding people's perceptions, especially when I think of Russia and the fact that Putin becomes even more popular after starting the war in Russia. So that's a different type of audience. So we have two people here who are more into the social sciences and information sciences. So I will ask you two ladies, how do we get more young people in non-standard physical technologies into the network? And do we need to think about creating another mechanism to think about social sciences?
Yeah, I can start about that. Well, I think that technology and social sciences are very often seen like two separate things. By technology people, by social scientists themselves. Well, actually, you can tie them very nicely together. You can see that social sciences or sociology is a very broad field. You can have military sociology, environmental sociology, family sociology, techno-sociology. And I think that technosociology actually is one of the future areas because of the man-unmanned teaming that is coming up as more prevalent idea, and it's more and more common. So I think we have to start viewing things a bit differently, that they're not something different. We had a very nice cooperation actually with some ethical engineers lately on the topic of unmanned ground systems. And it was a very interesting discussion because we talked about humans as society and they talked about ethics and moral and what is morally acceptable and what is not. And the discussion was very, it was not conflicting, and these two fields are not conflicting. They can absolutely work together and give some new meaning. And I think that technosociology, for example, is one of the fields that brings really these two things together. And that would also be not only in the military sphere, because technology is all over in the civilian field as well. So it doesn't have to be only about the military, but bringing young people to the understanding that social science is not only about very soft things, that we don't not only have to talk about family sociology, but we can learn about technology. I have zero technological background, but I have learned about unmanned ground systems and unmanned aerial systems and so on to research the topic, because I have to know something about technology to research the relation between technology and society and humans and how they interact to each other. So that would be my answer, that we have to start thinking about things differently.
Thank you. Very good answer. Dominika?
Yes, so exactly. And I would add maybe to that in general to maybe attract young people, young scientists to defense-related research, what I would suggest is to stress what makes this area different from research maybe in some civil universities, private universities, because there are really things that make this area quite unique. There are a lot of different opportunities. You deal with topics, with information that you will probably not get access to if you were doing some research at a different institution. So this is something that could be stressed, and maybe try to attract people who really want to contribute to national defense, to try to enter this area and do research for the benefits of nation, of the state. And I think that our participation in this symposium is one of the good examples. What are the opportunities if you work in this field?
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Now, another question? Hervé? I see you wanted to. By the way, Hervé led our efforts in doing our first major AI symposium back in Aquitaine,
A couple of years ago.
2018, because it was just before I left. I left Bordeaux, it was cold, and went to Oslo, and it was 37 degrees in June.
Did you enjoy the strike we had in Bordeaux at that time?
It seemed normal.
Okay. So I'm going to start by quoting William Gibson, because you are the future, and as we know, the future is already here, but it's not evenly distributed. So we are the future, but we being the Bordeaux guys with Bernard and stuff, to be advocating something that's really, I think, important, is the creation of a sixth domain. So Dale Redding was kind enough to put on one of his slides the sixth domain, which is a bit mysterious. And I can't agree more. I mean, NATO and the nations are, of course, convinced that there's no way you can win a war without going multi-domain. My position is that, yes, that's true, but guess what? You're missing the most important one, the sixth domain. Land, sea, air, cyber, space, that's great. That's necessary, of course, and Ukraine is here to remind us of that. But if you don't integrate what should be a given, human domain or cognitive domain, if you prefer, I mean, then you're bound to maybe win lots of battles, but at the end you're going to lose the war, like we all did, in the previous war that we waged. So thank you very much for carrying the torch and making sure that this human considerations in about everything are taken at the right level. And to us, the right level is making it a full-fledged domain, so that it's really taken at the same seriousness level, and also asking all of the difficult questions. You know, one of these ugly acronyms that NATO is fond of, .mlfpi.
Yeah, just a few more letters.
Yeah, because, okay, yes, we all agree that human domain should exist. Now, how do you make it operational? You know, what are the sensors? How do you get it into the C2 at the tactical level, the strategic level? All of these are the subjects that you folks, the younger ones, should be, and we're happy to help you. And shameless plug, you should all read this. The first chapter takes place in Tallinn.
That means you may have to answer the question first, all right?
Yes, thank you. I think it's the sixth domain, and the human domain is indeed a very important thing. It's, as I said, I think it's a foundation for all the technological field, and I think it really supports how we think about technology, and it isn't something that these things should not compete. And
it's what you said. Behind
yes.
every technology, well, in front of there's the human person with vulnerabilities and abilities. So
yeah. And we also have to think about how to, with the emerging technologies and the extended reality, we have to think about how to keep these people who are working with them psychologically healthy, that we don't break them in a way, you know. And that is the thing we have to think about, that should we start teaching people differently to work, or to work with the machines, or to the manned-unmanned teaming, and how it actually cognitively affects them if they have some extended reality. Do they sleep at night, or do they feel that their arm is part of something else, that it's not their own? So these are also probably some of the future research areas.
João, would you like to talk about this from a UAS perspective?
I don't think I have anything smart to say on the UAS perspective. Still, I see two connecting dots possibly, and I'll just launch what will be a motto for the future. So in the previous sessions, and trying to connect all the previous sessions that we've had from the director mentioning the importance of the EDTs. We've had Dr. Redding with the future, and now allow me to connect the possibility of the sixth dimension with the AI winter, because I do believe that if we focus on the sixth dimension, we will focus less on AI/ML, so machine learning, and we will use that, as you said it and you put it, we won't even notice that it's there, to focus on the sixth dimension. So maybe in the near future, we will focus on the sixth dimension while experiencing our AI winter that we just spoke about in the morning. That's my theory. Thank you.
Excellent. You guys good? Good. Okay. We have about 8 minutes left, and I have a final wrapping question, but do we have... Oh, we have all kinds of questions. Pavel, I'll get you next. We had someone over here. We have someone back there, too. This may be going into speed questioning.
Thank you. Is it working? Is it on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. This is just to illustrate how the technology does touch on subjects that are a little more down to the earth, like fuel. I'm the plans and policy of the SEPS, the Central Europe Pipeline System. And the criticality of that system is clear to support our forces. And we are very concerned currently to two aspects. One is cybersecurity, as you would have seen in the Colonial Pipeline in the US. We will be a target sooner or later. And sustainable aviation fuels. It's something that will happen sooner or later also. So we are trying to coordinate with STO and engage to see what we can do, and using the term from the morning, anticipate what needs to be done to be able to respond to these challenges climate, and cyber. So I wonder if you see any possibilities of discussing these subjects, essentially the sustainable aviation fuels, in one of your panels.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the question. So I would be answering, because might have not have noticed before that I am also the chair of the strategic committee at the Applied Vehicle Technologies panel, which is, well, the largest in terms of people and activities of the 7 panels within the STO. And we do have 2 exploratory teams working on sustainable aviation fuels. And I know for a fact that one of those teams has already stemmed into a full activity, thanks to the CSO and to the director that pushed it forward 6 months ahead of time to make it a full-on activity for 3 years. So, and we have another exploratory team which ends by the end of this month, which will stem again on the research and development activity. So our invitation within the AVT and as a part of the AVT strategic committee, allow me to invite you, your colleagues, to attend to all of these meetings if you so wish, to be ahead of time and to predict what the future might look like in terms of sustainable aviation fuels. Thank you.
I'm going to do a very bad thing right now. I will note that the United States Department of Defense National Defense Strategy that just came out calls for a huge increase in resilience and energy to combat climate change. So I would ask our American brethren out there to take a look across your S&T portfolio and see what you can bring forward for ideas that might be also applicable to NATO. So that's just, I can do that because I'm American and because I'm old and I'm crass. But I really think it's important that we follow where our nations are going. Pavel, you have one, then I will cap with one. And I will apologize to anybody we didn't get. They will be here. Come and talk to them.
Just to frame my question, we are celebrating 70 years of the AGAT RTO STO, and that's looking at the different. You are the new guys at the model we have here for 70 years. You are coming with the new, fresh look at what we do and how we do it at STO, the model. The technical committees, the panels we call them, and the group technical committees are actually 20-year-olds, 24-year-olds. They were established in 1998. You find your place in those technical committees. You at AVT, you find it at SET, you find it as a SAS panel. From your perspective, it is okay, or should we look at the future of the STO and how we actually organize the work and reflecting the EDTs we are talking about? It's still correct from your young level perspective? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pavel. Trying to connect the dots here. Indeed, the panels, as we know it, are 24-year-olds, so quite young. One thing that we need to focus that, again, this is my theory, my perception, that Ukraine has taught us and showed us, is that we've seen on slide number 18 of Mr. Redding's slideshow that he had the EDTs on the left-hand side and the novel materials and other new technologies on the right-hand side. And I do not remember seeing energy independence. If we don't have energy as an alliance of 1 billion people, energy independence, we are, well, destined to fail. If we don't produce enough food, we are destined to fail for the further generation. If we do not bet on education, we are destined to fail. So these are the 3 EDTs that I'm launching now to the CSO. And I'd like to use probably my last 30 seconds of speech to salute the CSO and the STO for the 70th anniversary, stating that the role that the CSO, so the Collaborative Support Office, plays within the STO, again with the OCS as well, is cannot be underestimated. So I've experienced by heart an occasion where the restructuring within the CSO has caused basically the working of the 7 panels to halt. So allow me to address congratulations and a thank you also to the CSO and to the OCS for your staff and your executives and your administratives who have made everything that we do here possible. Thank you very much.
So we have about a minute left. I'm going to frame up one last question. You each get 10 seconds to answer it. One of the things that I was most pleased with during my tenure in Paris was my last spring, we organized a Tech Horizon scanning workshop. And it was attended by about 40 young scientists, and we let about 4 old scientists come in and play the role of mentors. Is it time to institutionalize that type of structure on a recurring basis? Because the younger generation sees the world differently than we do. And we had some very good insights out of that. So do we need to structure, by the way, it was Jackie Eaton and Tim Pavich who were guilty for it. Do we need to structure something that does a more periodic look, cross-panel, at technology horizon scanning? Dominika? You have 10 seconds to answer.
10 seconds. Wow. Well, I believe that like these cross-panel issues could be very, very useful because, yeah, we also had a little talk a while ago that there is really a lot of amazing works or a lot of amazing results and findings, but very often we don't really know about what the other groups do, and so something like that would go across various panels could definitely be of benefit. Yeah.
Thank you. João?
Indeed. So as mentioned in the past, in the previous sessions, we do have noticed that these areas of activities and development are no longer segregated. So we have 7 panels, and applied vehicles technology doesn't work without sensors, doesn't work without AI, doesn't work with the communications, doesn't work alone. So my request to everyone in the room is, of course, to seek out more cross-panel collaboration and work between the executives and the panels. That'll be definitely a game changer within the STO. Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with the previous ones, but I would also like to say that in 10 years we will have millennials sitting in here, and they do not like very long obligations. And we do also have to consider that people do not stay in an organization anymore for 30 years. And how can we really come up with a solution that will be part of this changing society? Well, millennials will step up in 10 years, and how can we bring them in STO and really integrate them that maybe they will stay here more than 5 years and not switching between the jobs in every couple of months. So I think that it's a good idea and good solution to make it more interactionable and to have cross-panel things that will be a diversity that could bring the next generation as well to the organization.
I think I've heard 3 very good stories so far. Just to add a little bit to that, I think one of the core strengths of NATO and the research here is that we can combine the perspectives from all different kinds of people, different kinds of countries, cross-panel as has been stated. And for the 4 of us sitting here, I think also the age difference is a big one. So in order to speak in stereotypes, you need the young people with the crazy ideas and the old people with the experience. And I think together we should be able to get quite far.
Thank you. Let's have a round of applause.